Well, unfortunately, I think the governmental system that I set up as fictional in BMS were gradually going that way. And I certainly hadn't intended that. It was supposed to be fiction. As Harry Turtledove likes to say on his Twitter feed, I didn't mean to be topical. Hi, I'm Madeleine Holly-Rosing, the writer-creator of the steampunk supernatural series, Boston Metaphysical Society. You can find me at my website, Boston Metaphysical Society, or queenofmercia.com, Facebook, Boston Metaphysical Society, Twitter, otherwise known as X, M. Holly-Rosing. I'm also on Blue Sky and Instagram. And you're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by a returning guest. Now, I don't know if it's her fifth time on the show or not. I'll have to go back, but I think we're on our fifth time right now currently. She is the writer-creator, of course, of the Boston Metaphysical Society, as well as Morgana Pendragon, which was an amazing interview we had with her a year or so back. We're joined by the ever-talented Madeleine Holly-Rosing. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Kurt. I appreciate it.
Well, it's been a little bit since you last chatted with me here, and I saw the Kickstarter is doing extremely well. For those that have never seen past interviews or know anything about yourself as a creative person, who are you and what are you bringing to Two Geeks Talking today?
Well, I started out as a screenwriter, MFA degree from UCLA. And while I was there, I wrote a pilot called Boston Metaphysical Society. And to help it gain traction, it was suggested that I turn it into a graphic novel. So I went and learned how to do that and did our original 6-issue miniseries. Then a funny thing happened while I was in the indie creator community. I discovered I really loved writing comics. I loved being here. So I stayed. And for those of you who don't know what Boston Metaphysical Society is, the overall premise is about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battles supernatural forces in late 1800s Boston. We started with the original 6-issue miniseries, which is now volume 1, then did 4 standalone sequels, which is now in volume 2, and we're now on Kickstarter, finishing up our latest series called Mystery at Pike's Peak, to print issues 3 and 4, so we can wrap up that story.
That's awesome. You've been doing this for a while too. It must be 10 years now or so.
Actually, it's 12 years. It's a little over a decade. Boston Metaphysical, I believe, is probably one of the longest running comics on Kickstarter. You have to think about it because I actually started there, I think, like before Charlie Stickney, White Ash, and a lot of absolutely terrific folks. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, and the Kickstarter community has been absolutely terrific. We wouldn't exist without them, or let's just say we might, but in a very, very small. We wouldn't have been able to accomplish as much as we had in the last decade, because we've pretty much been getting out for Boston Metaphysical an issue every year. This year we'll be getting 2 issues out because I really wanted to finish up this series for people. They've been waiting on it for about almost 2 years, and which is unfortunate, but life happens. But here we are. It's done.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. The community that's rallied around not only Boston Metaphysical Society, but also Morgana Pendragon. You've written some amazing series here. Talk about how it feels to get fans to return for this newest arc and its completion, I should say, especially when your campaign as of right now is over 190% funded.
Well, it's great. And I had to, thank the backers and the community for helping spread the word. And as you know, even if you can't back, just sharing and posting is worth so much because, you don't know who can and who cannot. Or maybe just you can't now, but maybe later. And that's great too. But sharing is so critical to get the word out there. Yeah, the fans have been great. I've almost kind of backed myself into a corner now in that every new Boston Metaphysical campaign, I've gotten into the habit of having a new lapel pin. So now it's expected. People collect these.
Yeah.
And particularly in the steampunk community, they like to wear them, show them off. And I know people like, collectibles. So they're definitely collectibles. And then over the past couple campaigns, I've added the metal bookmarks, which they've just turned out just gorgeous, and people love them. In fact, I just announced a new add-on of a set of 3 experimental station bookmarks in copper, brass, and stainless steel that are available. But what's nice is they have a really good heft to them.
Yeah.
They're not just like you can't just go bend them or anything like that. They're really cool. And they are manufactured actually in California.
Oh, nice. That's the one thing I've always loved about your campaigns. Just the colorfulness of the comics is always beautiful, but the products you have, the perks levels of your campaign are just amazing and incredible. I had never heard of metal bookmarks until your campaign. I had never really thought of lapel pins. So you're definitely marketing your products towards the style of your books and what you've been writing. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, well, also the lapel pins are very big in, like I said, the steampunk community. And particularly initially, I spent a lot of time going to steampunk conventions and other events. Unfortunately, there's not as many anymore. There used to be about at least 3 I could go to per year, and actually maybe more. And now I know there's only one left in California. I know they've been trying to start up some others in Southern California. I do know there is one. I moved up to Oregon. There is, I think, like a one day up in Washington, which I'll definitely need to check out now that I'm a little closer. Hopefully it's drivable. Yeah, it's been tough. There is TeslaCon, which is in Madison, Wisconsin every year. That's a lot of travel, and then, the logistics involved with that. So I usually only do one con per year where I have to fly to.
Okay.
Because of the logistics. You got to ship books, you got to ship yourself.
Yeah.
You have to live for, 5 days somewhere and then come home again. So yeah, I could go on and on about the logistics of flying to a convention when it's only you, and you're the one who has to carry everything. You have to pick up everything. Yeah, if anyone wants to hit me up on those tips, they should, because it's like, should it be USPS, FedEx, UPS, and like I have opinions on all of those things.
We'll have to say that for the business section of a next interview there. We'll talk
That's
about
right.
that,
Okay.
the convention side of things here. It is obviously a concern with the cost of living, with the cost of travel, with the cost of printing books and everything like that. And it's good to see that with your campaigns being successful as they are, you're at least covering the cost of the books and your other products. So I think that's amazing to see in its own right.
Yeah, everyone's been really great. I enjoy interacting with the backers, and I sometimes learn from them too. And they'll sometimes catch me on mistakes. So like, why isn't this in here? And I'm like, oh, it was supposed to be. And I'm like, okay, I have to go fix that. Thank you.
Talk about this latest arc. Obviously, Pike's Peak. We talked about issues 1 and 2 way back when you were back on the show here. You're now into issues 3 and 4, wrapping up the arc itself. Give us a brief rundown of Pike's Peak, and why are we wrapping up at this point? Are we working on a new story? Like, what's your roadmap?
The general storyline of Pike's Peak is at the end of the last standalone sequel called The Book of Demons. Our fearless team needs to get the hell out of Dodge, so to speak. They need to get out of Boston. And the only safe haven they have right now is Tesla's experimental station in Colorado Springs. But when they arrive there, they discover that, one, he's not alone. A partner has been foisted on him. Her name is Mai Hui Chow from the Great House Chow of California, and they are working on developing wireless technology. But while they're there, they're seemingly an attempt on Tesla's life. And Caitlin herself, her abilities start to change. So now they're dealing with a murder plot and what's going on with Caitlin. This story does have a complete arc. I mean, one of the mysteries is solved, but it is open-ended, where they've got a new conundrum at the end. So that's going to lead us into a new story arc.
Awesome. Good. I didn't want you to be finished with Boston Metaphysical Society completely. I mean, it's still an amazing read in itself. So I'm glad you're still writing it.
I do get that question. It's like, okay, you've done all of these. Is there an end? And there's always been in my head, there is sort of kind of an end for our immediate team of Caitlin, Samuel, Granville, and now Alma. But there's so many offshoots because we've met a lot of new characters. This is a really, really big world. It's very deep. And if you noticed in the trades that I do, there's always a bonus story. And that bonus story is always something like a case that was in between the bigger cases or a window into, say, like Samuel's earlier life before Caitlin, also Alma's, a window into her life. So I could spin off so many different things from this series. And in fact, in the volume 2 hardback, the special edition, I did a short called The Ghost Collector. And the more I looked at that, I said, this could actually be a novella. So when I have time, I'd like to do that.
Well, and that's what I love. You love science. You've always been a proponent of the steampunk community. You blend it so well together. I love the fact that you have such a vast knowledge base when it comes to all of this stuff here. But what is it about steampunk and science that just makes writing comics that much more fun for you?
Well, I'm not so sure it's about the steampunk itself, because BMS is more steampunk-ish. It has some of the elements. I guess in comparison, many of the earlier steampunk comics that I read were all about the gadgets, but they weren't about the people. And you can't tell a good story without relationships. The relationship can be between a human and an automaton, or two automatons, or however you want to do it, but not a thing. Yeah, we have steampunk elements, but they're organic to the world, and the story is never about that. It's always about something, the relationships between the main characters, ancillary characters, and also the world that they live in.
And the world that they live in, the fact that you have a great world building, that you said you could write side stories of all these amazing characters, and you have your main cast still, and you're still writing amazing works here. What is it about historical America that just influences your world building? What makes it so special to you?
Well, it probably started with the fact that I have bachelor's degrees in politics. Kind of a side note was American history.
Okay.
And what really brought me to it was BMS is an American story. And when it was first developed, so many of the steampunk type stories were set in Victorian England. Many still are, but it's vastly expanded to around the world and multicultural, which is great.
Yeah.
It's way more interesting, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
It's grounded in the American psyche. It was I already knew a lot about American history, but obviously I had to dig more, and a lot of the stuff I learned, many years ago. So it's like, okay, refresher course, and digging into aspects that, they never teach you in high school or college. I love history. So, I mean, that's really what it came down to, is I love history. It was just all of the elements just kind of intertwined that piqued my interest, because I love science fiction. I love history. I do try to make the science accurate,
Right.
if I can. If I can't, the story has to take precedent. So
Sure.
obviously there's going to be some fudging, but there'll be little bits in there that if someone knows that particular science, they'll go like, oh, that's right, that's right. Even the bonus material I add on to the individual issues, which is different than what goes in the trades. I usually talk about the history. For A Mystery of Pike's Peak, issues 1 and 2, there's bonus material on, the Chinese Exclusionary Act, which, they don't teach anymore. And I posit in my world that never happened. which allowed the Chinese great houses to flourish in California because of that. Because I wanted to take a look at what would we look like as a nation if that never happened.
Yeah.
On the science side, I actually in issues 3 and 4, I added a little bit on a particular, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I talk a little bit about an element that's part of, it's actually on the periodic table, that the readers will be introduced to if they've never heard of it before. I was like, yes, it is real. I give little footnotes of like, yeah, if you want to go check it out, here are the footnotes. Go crazy. Have fun.
But is American history cyclical? Do you find that you're trying not to repeat current history with past history, or does that affect your story in any way?
Well, unfortunately, I think the governmental system that I set up as fictional in BMS were gradually going that way. And I certainly hadn't intended that. It was supposed to be fiction. Yeah, because the governmental system in BMS because I spin off from the War of 1812. That's my jumping off point to making things different. We veer into a parliamentary oligarchy. And I'm going like, okay, as Harry Turtledove likes to say on his Twitter feed, I didn't mean to be topical.
At least, your story is, or eventually will be, complete down the road. But,
yeah,
for now, it's still an amazing read.
Thank you.
It has a more positive spin on it than reality. Great. So
yes.
At least that's what we'll say
until further notice.
In regards to your art team here, because you do a lot of beautiful alternative covers. Daniela Rivera, have we talked about her in the past or no?
No. Daniela came on board for issues 3 and 4 because Elizabeth could no longer continue with the series. Danny did a great job.
Yeah.
I actually had the pleasure of meeting her at San Diego Comic-Con. She's from Mexico. She came up to, I think, to go play, which is fine. But so rarely do I get to meet the people on my team because everyone lives all over the place. Alden Kay, who's the artist for Morgana, lives in Portland.
Okay. So
we've actually met. And when I did Rose City Comic-Con, I guess about a month and a half ago, he came and I said, hey, I've got, I'm going to give you a copy and, you can take it home with you. And also, could you, sign a few copies while you're here? And that would be a lot of fun. He did. He looked up at me and just said, oh, yeah, this is the first comic I've ever signed. I went like, what? This guy is so good. He's just, he's amazing. Warnia, the colorist, she's in Indonesia, I believe.
Okay.
Does a stellar job.
Yeah.
For Morgana, Rio Burton is doing all 4 main covers, and then I'm bringing in different artists for the variant. And for Morgana 1, it was Roberta Ingranata. Morgana number 2 is actually just went to the letterer. The art is done. Nice. Because that Kickstarter I will probably run in February. Claudia Annunziello did the variant cover for that, which is, when you see it, it's amazing. Yeah. It's just so beautiful. I have to go write issues 3 and 4. So that's on my plate. Plus, I have to finish, I did the story for Lady Mechanica. Yeah. And so the first 2 issues came out. And so I'm waiting for the art for the next 2 issues to do the final polish for, dialogue pass. And I guess at this rate, they'll probably run a Kickstarter in early 2026 as well for that. I assume that's what they're going to do. I'm not sure. And then for Boston Metaphysical, issues 1 and 2, I also had Roberta Ingranata do, did I do one of, I'm like blanking now. Because it's trying to balance all these different series. Like, who did I have? And anyway, for 3 and 4, it's Yishan Li, who I always wanted to work with. So I was glad to get her on board to do one of the variant covers. And then Gwynn Tavares was able to sneak in to do a cover a variant cover for issue 4 of Pike's Peak. And for those of you who don't know, Gwynn Tavares was the artist and colorist for my 4 standalone sequels for Boston Metaphysical. She had to kind of resign because at the time she had 2 children under the age of 3, which, you know, in the middle of COVID, so forget about it. Yeah, she was busy, which I understand. Love her work. Always will. I'm glad she could spare time to do the cover. Yeah, and then Angela Wu did all of the main covers for Pike's Peak. Did a stupendous job.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like as a creator, as a writer, you have to be in awe and glee when it comes to your emails popping up of pages and things like that when you get to see the finalized versions. Like, does that still bring you joy after 12 years?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Particularly when an artist blows up a page of mine. I panel everything out, but you know, every once in a while they'll say like, "Hey, I saw this, but I think this might work better. What do you think?" And I'll go like, "Yes, that is better. We will stick with that." So, I mean, there's reason why you hire good artists. You want them to be artists.
Yeah.
So I do try not to micromanage them, but give them enough information so they can do their job well. I give reference material, links to stuff. If there's videos on something, I know with Alden in the second issue of Morgana, there is a particular panel where I wanted Morgana essentially doing an Aikido move. So I sent him the video and like, okay, this is the time and, you know, slow it down. And this is how it's supposed to look over the page. So, I mean, obviously that really helped him out because he says, yeah, I'd never done anything quite like this. It turned out beautifully because Alden's amazing. And I'll never stop saying that.
And rightly so, I'm sure.
And rightly so. He was a new artist. We talk a lot. There's a lot of communication. Like, you know, how does he want things that will help him do his job? And then I will do that.
How does that work though, in terms of like notes back and forth? Obviously, like you said, communication is the key, but I'm sure every artist's style and process is different. Like, how do you work through that as the writer creator?
Well, for Boston Metaphysical with Danny, she had the advantage of being able to look at all these previous issues. So she knew how the characters look, she knew how they dressed. All that information was right there for her. And she knew that all of the characters had to look similar enough to previous issues so a reader could instantly say, that's Caitlin, that's Samuel, it's Granville. There's a little differences, but we know these are our guys. These are our folks. With Alden was different because we were creating brand new characters. There was no previously done work. And so talking to him, I just said, oh, do you want images of, say, like actors or people on the street, of an idea of how I want them to look? And he said, yes. So I would send him photos of people who, you know, how I imagined the characters would sort of look like. And then he would take his spin on it, but it gave him someplace to start. And also, you know, the Morgana's in, you know, 6th century medieval England. So it's like, what did the houses look like? What did the castles look like? What did the palace look like? And so I'm pulling up all, you know, archaeological photos, particularly with, we haven't quite met the main nemesis yet, so I don't want to give that away. But what makes them special, the kind of jewelry they wore, the clothes they wore, the weaponry used by Morgana's team. If you look, it's a hodgepodge from a variety of different cultures. And that's quite intentional because these are people who have traveled the world. So they're going to have experimented with different types of weaponry and armor to see what works best for them. So it may not be culturally accurate for their culture, but it doesn't matter because they spent this time through Persia, the Ottoman Empire, all these places. And they're like, well, okay, well, this helmet fits me the best. And I can see here, this is what I like. This is the kind of sword I like. This is the kind of bow I like. And whether or not it's the one that comes from my particular culture doesn't matter because of the way they've traveled and experimented with the different kinds of weaponry. If you're a professional mercenary, you're going to go with what works for you.
Yeah.
And you're not going to care where it comes from.
Yeah, the pointy end goes towards the enemy.
Yeah, the pointy end, the pointy end. That was always interesting to me. And I also have a master's degree in Arabic and the cultural history of the Arabs. And so I've done a lot of, in my previous life, did a lot of research on siege warcraft, all this kind of weaponry, which also feeds into Morgana. So different parts of my life and education feed into these comics in different ways. That part has been fun.
And that's what I love, that the fact that you're including a diverse cast with both of your works, because it's interesting and engaging. Like you said, it's something different, that you're not just whitewashing. You're just simply giving a variety to your stories that fit and that work very well. Why, as a writer, would you want to do that?
Well, also historically, everyone traveled a lot. People traveled more than you thought they did. You look in the back of Morgana and the bonus material, I talk about how these men who eventually became mercenaries were former Roman mercenaries, but they were originally from Ireland, but they were part of a Roman troop for a while, and they traveled everywhere. Getty, who's from West Africa, was a guardsman for a merchant, and they traveled the Silk Road. People forget that England and other places, everybody went everywhere.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in mainstream media, you tend to see like all white people. It's like, oh, it's in England or northern, the northern countries, Sweden or Norway, and everybody's white. Well, yes, predominantly they were those who lived there, but those who traveled there often were not. A really good example of diversity is if you've ever watched Vikings,
Yeah.
which I love,
Yeah.
and the subsequent was a Vikings Valhalla. If you look into the crowd at Gatgat, you see faces that are Asian and are diverse. I mean, these people are actually slaves. This is when wasn't actually a good thing. They were slaves.
Right.
But and there were also Arab merchants that went up to the north, and often that's never talked about in history. So not only in Morgana, yes, it's much more interesting to have a diverse cast. It's not diversity for diversity's sake.
Right.
It's more historically accurate.
And that's what I love. It gives a spice, a variety, something that is just not seen religiously in comics these days. I'm glad you're providing that to the masses, and I'm sure people that read it are learn something new. And it's not just about, well, the story is good. They're getting some historical accuracy finally.
Yeah, I mean, even though obviously Morgana and Arthur, they're fictional.
Right.
We know that. We know that.
Don't spoil my fun.
Yeah, I mean, just like Boston Metaphysical, yes, there are historical figures in there, like Granville and Tesla and Houdini in the earlier issues, but Caitlin and Samuel and the ghosts and demons, that's all fictional.
Do you think you could see either Boston Metaphysical Society or Morgana Pendragon in live action or animation at some point?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been approached.
Okay.
I mean, oh yeah. I've yet to find the right partner. And I'm not in a hurry. When the right partner comes, it'll happen. I have no pressing absolute desire that this must absolutely be on this, an animation or on Netflix or something. It would be, it'd be freaking awesome if it was, but it's not going to stop me from continuing to create, whether or not it ever is.
Sure. Can't find the right director, producer, distributor kind of situation, because Hollywood seems to be doing fairly well with animation these days. Hence the K-pop Demon Hunters.
It's, to put quite bluntly, finding a place that doesn't have predatory contracts.
Yeah, okay. That'll do it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll let that drop though.
Yeah.
Do you have any modern creators or storytellers that you're reading currently, or that you've either talked to at, say, San Diego or anything like that have character-driven stories that are interesting that we should look at?
Not that I talked to at San Diego, but because of my schedule, I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Okay.
and then, fill in when I have some downtime with, digital comics and things like that. As far as prose, right off the bat, Martha Wells,
Okay.
The Murderbot Diaries. I mean, I first listened to them on audio a number of years ago, and obviously now it's an Apple TV and show, and I heard it's great. We don't get Apple, so I haven't seen that yet, but we love the stories. Absolutely love Murderbot. It's great for world building. Adrian Tchaikovsky,
Oh yeah.
he's amazing. Also Elizabeth Bear, and unfortunately, I think she's overlooked a lot.
Okay.
But I think it's called the White Space series, is really, really good, and I like her stuff. She's also done some steampunk stuff. I have not read it. There's a reason for that, because I didn't want it to accidentally influence what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the same thing with Lady Mechanica, is that for years I didn't read it because I didn't want to accidentally have it influence me. And then when they hired me to write a story, I went back and read everything and realized it's so different that it's in the same wheelhouse, but it's not the same at all.
Sure.
There's no worry there. I did read an interesting graphic novel from G. Willow Wilson called The Stone Bridge Register, I believe.
Okay.
It's actually black and white. I don't remember the artists, and that's my bad. It was black and white, but I'm not usually a fan of black and white comics, but this was outstanding. Kind of has this paranormal undertone to it, but it's not in your face. It's an interesting story, essentially about community of a Somali refugee who arrives in a small Washington state town on the coast. It's a fishing town that's slowly dying because the fish are no longer there. There's this huge stone man up on the cliff that somebody created, and no one knows who. And so she's initially trying to find out, how did this happen? Who created this? Only to find out that nobody cares. It's a very interesting story.
What excites you most about the current direction of independent comics and crowdfunding in 2025 into 2026?
The fact that I think everyone's trying to level up. The community still works very well together. I know Kickstarter's getting pretty flooded now. It's hard for a new creator on Kickstarter, I think, right now, and this is strictly anecdotal, so no data behind me at all.
Right.
For those of us who are established, like myself, Tyler James, Kat Calamia, Phil Falco, Charlie Stickney, all of them, we're doing fine. But yeah, it's a lot harder if you're new trying to break in. And I think a lot of that, one, has to do with the economy, just the feeling of we don't know what's going to happen. And then also part of it has to do with price points. Unfortunately, I am seeing some people are pricing their digitals comics, I think, a little too high.
Okay.
So it's difficult for, like, hey, I just want to try you out. This is issue 1. I'm not going to spend $10 on a digital 22-page comic.
Right.
That's just I'm not going to do that. But if it's 5 or 6, yeah, I'll drop that. That's one of the reasons, Morgana, the digital #1 was $6. It's like, it's a brand new series, never heard of it. I give it a try for $6, see if I liked it. If I liked it, then I'll come back. And if I don't, okay, it's $6. No, it's fine. Yeah, I think creators really need to be mindful of their price points.
Plus, you don't know if the prices are going to increase for shipping costs. Like being in Canada, I interviewed a couple of creators where they're like, I'm just going to stay in the States. I can't ship across the borders. It's too much.
Well, you do have to charge for it.
Sure.
And so you shouldn't be you should break even on your shipping. So it's not out of pocket. The backer does need to pay for that, which is that's what pirate ship is for. Their simple export rate, which has worked out very well. I have quite a number of non-US backers, and I make no money off of the shipping. They just pay what the shipping is. I prototype all of my books, so I figure out what the shipping is. 9 times out of 10, or more, actually, I get it if there is more. I get it right. Even with multiple packages, I'm pretty good at, okay, figuring out, because some of the larger packages, okay, I'll explain simple export rate. It only goes up to 4 pounds.
Okay.
So anything over 4 pounds, then it goes into USPS. So for my larger packages, we break it up into multiple packages, either 2 or 3. You try to keep them each under 3 pounds. You figure it out. So it's like a big puzzle. I literally have to lay these out on the kitchen counter and weigh them to figure out what that's going to be. And then you figure that out based on the simple export rate of what those 3 packages would cost for someone from Great Britain or Sweden or Canada, what it would cost. And then that's what you charge the backer. There you go. You do have to plan for it, and you do need to prototype, but I think you're missing out on a lot of potential future fans if you don't send to non-US addresses. Or they can pick up the digital, which is great.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I mean, that is what the digital is for. So the international, if you don't want to spend money on shipping, get the digital. That's what it's there for.
Yeah. 100%, and that's how I've been purchasing a lot of my content, just because it's just ease of use at this point.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I know it's expensive, so you got to pick and choose, and I get it.
Are there any other historical movements or figures you'd love to explore in future story within or beyond Boston Metaphysical Society?
I do, but that would be giving away spoilers.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Fine.
I don't want to give away until issues 3 and 4 go out of where we're going quite yet. So
I'll wait till I get 3 and 4 and we'll go
sorry.
When you imagine the legacy of Boston Metaphysical Society 20 years from now, what do you hope readers or viewers remember it for?
I guess the great characters and stories. Every other good TV show or movie, when you talk about it with friends, what do you talk about? It's like, hey, I saw this great movie about fill in the blank. And then there was this character who did fill in the blank. And to me, that would be awesome. As a side note, I will say I have had my audio drama lines quoted back to me. Which was hysterical. I walked by someone and they just looked at me and started quoting lines from the audio drama. And they said, I love that line. I shoot back.
Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, that audio drama did amazing as well too. I love the fact that you were branching out into those avenues there, and just beautiful production value as well too. I hate to say this, Madeleine, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. Thanks so much for being back on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Where can we find you? How can we support you? And anything else you would like to promote? And where is this Kickstarter campaign, and when does it end?
Just go to Kickstarter.com, type in Boston Metaphysical, should pop right up. The campaign goes until November 12th. I just posted some new add-ons, which should be fun. So go check those out. We'll be taking late pledges for probably a few weeks after the campaign ends. But otherwise, you can find me at my website, Queen of Mercia, or bostonmetaphysical.com. It all goes to the same place. On Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. I'm on all those places. And I also have a Square store, which I'm going to have to update pretty soon. Yeah, I'm not sure what my next con is going to be because we just recently moved. I'll probably be doing some local stuff here in Oregon, mostly next year, and then hopefully hitting San Diego Comic-Con and Worldcon. We'll see. I still haven't gotten the acceptance emails yet, so we'll have to wait on that.
Well, I'll have to have you back on. We'll talk, obviously, Morgana issue 2, 3, 4, whichever one we're working on here, as well as your upcoming Boston Metaphysical and any other projects you happen to create. I'd love to talk. We never talked about Lady Kanika. Yeah, we always touched on it. We never really dove into that, but I'd love to talk about that maybe on another interview, and that way.
Maybe possibly when Joe and Marcia put it up on Kickstarter.
Okay.
Whenever the last two issues of the Mechanical Menagerie. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, then we'll definitely have to talk about that. Like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our website, www.youtube.com/TGT Media, the podcast. Search Two Geeks Talking. That's TWO Geeks Talking, wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.
Thank you.